Hi guys, we love you here. I'm gonna do a few videos on a old case, a cold case, unsolved. It's closed, but it's open. They need new evidence, which is coming, little bits here and there, but not enough. This case is still a mystery, even though people think they know who did it, and people think they were protected. Now, we don't know who did the murders, but they have their suspicions. But as we know, you need proof and evidence. But a lot of these girls that were killed were found months later. Their bodies weren't in very good condition, if you know what I mean, without going into detail. They were thrown away in the bayou, and you know, the elements and all that kind of stuff. Some were killed in different manners, but they're saying they're related, and maybe the same person killed them. So this is what I'd like to have a discussion. If you know anything about the Jennings 8, the killings in the bayou in Louisiana some years back, this case still is attracting attention because it has never been solved, and we don't know why it hasn't been solved yet. Whether nobody is really trying, or was it one of their own? These killings went on for a number of years, and in between they stopped. But maybe this person moved away for a little bit, or went to prison, went to jail, sobered up, stopped taking drugs for a little bit, all those kind of things. We don't know. So we're going to talk about this. If you're interested, give me a thumbs up and comment below. There's a lot of people that need your help in solving this case. This town is a very mysterious town, like it's a town out the middle of nowhere, where they have their own laws. A certain town maybe you don't want to visit, and maybe you will go through this town accidentally. Kind of like spooky, maybe. You feel uneasy, and you really have to watch your back, kind of thing. Because this town, even the people that live there, are that scared to talk about certain stuff, and maybe this case, in fear they will be the next victim, in fear that they may know too much and they will be the next victim. I mean, strange things have happened to people that have spoken up. Like one person's home was destroyed by a fire. We don't know if that was an accident or just shut them up. This was a relative of one of the deceased. She was trying to make a case to bring justice to her mother, and she had all the paperwork that she needed to at least get a full autopsy. And to this day, they never had an autopsy. For some reason, we don't know what reason it is, because it is normal, quite normal, and is the law to get a full autopsy. Now, they may use excuses. Well, this case is not closed. But it kind of is closed. It's a cold case. And they may use the excuse, well, it's still an ongoing cold case. And if you get the autopsy, it may jeopardize the case when it goes to court. Really? Have you heard that one, guys? You can get pay for a private autopsy. You can hire a lawyer to demand to get the autopsy. And isn't it the right for family members to at least have the autopsy? Any kind of autopsy. I mean, that is against the law to keep that right away from you. So we're going to delve into this at the beginning of these girls that were killed. But like I said, they were killed in different manners. But that doesn't mean it was not the same person. Because this person that killed these people have got a trait. And they've got anger issues. They may drink. They're on drugs. They're just an abuser. They may hate women. They may hate prostitutes, but they just might not like women for some reason or another. And this is how the story goes. Let's start from the beginning, as we know it. We'll start off with Shelia Comeaux. Her last name is spelled Comeaux, but pronounced Comeaux. The daughter of Shelia. She wants answers of her mother's untimely death. So many unanswered questions. Sister, brother, family would like answers too. I want my mother's case investigated, as well as other murders. So she's not thinking of herself, she's thinking, her mother and these 8 girls that were also murdered. And she would like justice served. She also said a long time ago, no matter their lifestyle, regardless, who should decide who lives and who dies? Those women had a life. They had a mother, father, siblings. They had children. They had a family who cared. September the 1st, 2009, Shelia's daughter said her mother's case was closed, no arrest, and it's a cold case. The daughter also said she was going to have an interview with the KPLC at that time, back in 2009, within a few days, and try to get the ball rolling and try to get her mother's case reopened. August the 21st in 2009, even though the family had paid for a full autopsy, they never received one. And Shelia's daughter and her children were young then, so there wasn't much, they could do. But as they grew up, they were able to dove into their mother's case as they were her children. And she didn't need a guardian any longer. They were adults. She finally asked her grandparents about the information, if it was true that they did pay for a full autopsy. And they said yes, they paid for one and never received no autopsy. Whitney's sister, she was victim number 4. Whitney's Dubos, Dubois, that's how it's spelled, also never saw an autopsy, never received an autopsy on her sister. And this case went cold as well, but is still an ongoing investigation. Now, even though Shelia case is not quite connected to the Jennings 8, they still probably are connected in some way. And her case has never been solved. And Shelia was some kind of informant, and she also knew a lot. And these Jennings 8, the girls that were killed, they apparently were the ones that dragged her out of the car. And she was very badly beaten, dragged through the window, and she had all kinds of wounds on her. But the reason why she lived was because she was left for dead. The reason why she left was because they said the elements, it had got cold and lowered her blood flow, and she was able to live through this for 1 year. So we're probably saying that all these girls are connected in some way because they all knew about each other or hung out with each other, things like that. So they're using the autopsy as, well, if we give it to you, it's jeopardize the case when we do get a suspect and all that and the other. And so they haven't got an autopsy report. And, you know, it's the right for everybody, like I said, to get a copy of an autopsy. Now, who's doing these autopsies? Are they afraid of the police? Afraid of the judges? They work for the court system. They work for the state, the county. And they're paid off. Alleged. Just saying. They're all paid off. And it seems like you can't even trust the coroner. You can't trust the coroner. So really you needed to. Well, these people are poor. These people are poor and they don't have money, or they just don't know their rights, or they're kept quiet from threats. And stuff like that, because they don't want to be the next victim. Now, there are people that really do think they know who it is. But this person has never been... Well, there is a suspect, but that's all they are. I mean, you get the FBI involved in this, and even them get friend. I don't know what kind of town this is. Redneck. I mean, anything goes in this town. They make their own laws up, by the sounds of it, alleged. And we need to, you know, get the ball rolling on this case. I mean, it was a serial killer. These people were dropping like flies. And not just these women. There's a lot of men that's been killed too. And I will show you the list. I don't know if this is connected. Why these men were killed. There's a lot of them. Were they prostituting too? Because this town is poor. These people make money any way they can. And that's all they know. But these people had family, and some had husbands. But somehow, you know, they got into drugs and alcohol, or they were abused, or they just didn't know there's a better life out there if only you can just move out. If you're poor there and have nothing, and it's a bad place to live, you might as well go somewhere else and try it out, because you're not going to be any worse off, right? You're still going to be homeless. And you can get help in other places through the state. That's a lot easier to get help. I mean, because it seems like maybe everybody's paid off, even, you know, welfare, food stamps. Because as we know, if you live in certain states, certain counties, the cost of living, they only pay you so much. So you never get anywhere, and there's never enough money to help families with, say, work experience, education, food for their babies, you know, like milk, WIC, as we call it, help with housing, This is back a long time ago. And the law has changed since then, but this was a long time ago. So that's how that goes. And, maybe there was no lawyers trying to work for free to help these people do anything. It seems like they all got their hands tied for one reason or another. And maybe they too were scared for their life. I mean, not everybody is bad, but the ones that are good weren't not getting the backup they needed for their safety as well. I mean, anybody could go missing without a trace in that part of town. The KPLC report. Shelia Comeaux, she lived for 1 year after her brutal beating, near-death experience. She was in bad shape. She was in a nursing home for a while, like a rehab nursing home, after her attempted murder. But a year later, she had to go into hospital for some, because she had to have surgeries. She had to have surgeries from her beatings. I know her head was badly beaten and scarred up, and she had to go in for a simple skin graft. And around lunchtime, you know how they put the trays outside of the hospital rooms, and they go in and they hand out the trays one by one by one. Well, I don't know if they knew which tray she was going to get. Some people order special meals or only can eat certain diets. And maybe they knew which tray was hers, because she got a hold of her tray and she had her meal. I'm not sure she did eat all of it, but just after she had eaten her meal, she died, just like that. There was no reason for her to die, just like that. But she did eat her meal, and then she died. And the family thinks somebody got to her, that they poisoned her meal, her drink. Alleged. This is all alleged. But they can't understand why their mother suddenly died. And there's no reason for it. And they just don't know why she died. Now, I guess they didn't get her autopsy report. Did they test for any kind of drug in her body? Did they wait too long to test the body for any kind of poison? Did they ever do those kind of tests back in them days? I mean, it's a long time ago, but not that long ago. So, that's under kind of suspicious circumstances that she died from. And she died in hospital. So what do you think about that part of it? They say she was the first victim of this serial killer, alleged serial killer. But as I say, they say it wasn't a serial killer, because apparently there was no other murder for 1 year. Well, there was stuff going on within that year. Maybe this person was in jail, in prison, serving a few months because of abuse or drunkenness or drugs, and had to serve some time in prison for maybe stealing or whatever may be the case. And they say she was the first victim, and this was back in 1999. You know, this is a long time ago. 20 years ago, nearly. And the second victim, as we call her, the second victim, Loretta, she was the second victim. But one thing we know is all the victims are too similar. They are similar in nature, and they have connections. They all knew each other. This is a small town. They're known drug users, or they drink, or they're on drugs, you know, and they're prostitutes. But we don't put them down for it. It's that was the lifestyle to earn a little extra money. And it's been going on for centuries. But that's no reason to kill anybody because they're different, because they do a different job to make ends meet. But you know, some of them did try to get off drugs. They tried, but there was no help back then. There's not the help back then than there is now. There's not the support as there is now. But you also got to be willing and stay away from groups of people that do stuff that you're trying to stay away from. I mean, but you also need help and support. And apparently these people didn't get it, or there's no means. They were just kept down. You know, you're kept down all the time. And Shelia's daughter had said at one time, Chief Lassiter, Lassiter, said that Shelia's case has nothing to do with the other murders, not related whatsoever. Yeah, and guess where he ended up in? She was afraid to talk to the police because she didn't know who to trust. The cops are corrupt. They're corrupt. They're all corrupt. They're into making money any way they can, getting a slice of the pie, bringing cases to court, getting money for the county. The judges are corrupt, alleged. Who does she know who to trust, who to talk to? Even lawyers can be corrupt or bought. In certain cases, because money talks, And they obviously think these people's lives are worth nothing. They are nobody. So as I said earlier, Shelia was an informant. She was. That's what they're saying, that she was an informant. And this may have got her killed, even though she lived a year after her brutal beating, where it was a miracle that she lived. And she may have known too much, or other people found out about her reporting, because there was one guy that was a suspect, and of course he drank and hung out with prostitutes and gave them money, and they got their little hangout. And maybe, I don't know what she was supposed to give, what kind of informant she was, for who exactly, but they probably found out about her, and maybe a bad cop found out. You got the good cop, bad cop, and even the cops don't know who to trust. So, they don't tell everybody what's going on, what they're doing within the police force. But once they find out, you've got a cop that's a chief of police, and he's in on it. Well then, who do you go to? Because you can't go higher up, because they'll find out. So she knew too much. What? We don't know. And she probably got paid a little bit of money for being an informant. I mean, being a prostitute back in them days, they didn't earn that much. What's the big deal? What's the big deal? It's been going on for centuries. I mean, it's okay to give it away for free. Pick up a guy and go home and give it to free. But it's not okay to pick up a guy, take him home, and they give you some money. That part I don't understand. Why give it away when you can get paid for it? So this, his name was, this police chief, his name was Johnny Lancinter. He said, no one will cooperate. No one. So he's the chief of police, and he's saying nobody is saying anything. Well, maybe he's onto something. That's his word. That's his word alone. He finds out what people's got to say, and they tell him, and they end up dead. Alleged. Just saying. Who can we trust? Because apparently, a little bit down the line, that this chief of police was arrested. And he was arrested for stealing out of the evidence room. How about that? Stealing out of the evidence room. Now, there must have been somebody good there to report him, for stealing. But I don't know what he stole. But he was stealing evidence. Now, how long was this going on for? I bet you it wasn't his first time. Was not his first time. So, of course, they go and get a new chief of police. Eventually. Okay guys, that's end of part 1. I'm not going to make these videos too long, because there is quite a bit of evidence, you know, going back all these years. So I'm just kind of making it brief. And I'm sure you guys have heard of the Jennings 8 and the killings that are happening in the bayou. And there is a book written about the case. There is lots of things that's been aired about the case, and trying to reopen it, get information, who did this and why. But there was a doctor, and I will give him credit for this, Dr. M. Godwin. He has given me permission to use some of his information and photos that he did back in 2008 and handed it in, you know, his information. He handed it in. He did the aerial maps, and the other information I haven't put on this video, but maybe the next when I get to it, about who he does not know who the killer was, but he is a profiler, and he's a doctor, and he handed this in and said, this is the profile of the killer, but it's just a profile, and he doesn't know. There is a suspect, but he doesn't know. He wasn't an investigator. He's a doctor, and he's a profiler, and he handed it in. And in my next video I might put that up, but I'm just giving credit to Dr. Maurice Godwin, who gave me permission to use some of this information, and it's not for sharing because it's copyrighted, but I'm just letting you know that I have permission from him to use some information, because I wrote to him and asked. So it's always best to ask before you use certain information, otherwise we'll get, if they find out, we'll get a strike. But there you go guys, and I'll see you in the next video, and let's follow this case. It's an old cold case. We're trying to reopen it. We're trying to get it out there. Please share and like and sub to my channel. Press the notification button so you can be notified for future videos. And thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you in the comments.